My name is Brock Lesnar, out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's an honor for me to be participating in this event, and I hope we can meet everyone's expectations.
The 90,000 seat cavernous Olympic Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. Actual paid 3,674. They literally couldn't even give away half the tickets they bought.
It was really bad.
Whatever kind of MMA fan you are, you can't argue with statistics, and the numbers show that besides Conor McGregor, Brock Lesnar is the biggest selling pay-per-view star of all time. Even to this day, with 1.6 million pay-per-views sold for headlining at UFC 100. McGregor is the only star to surpass it in literal decades since. But what if I told you this very same star essentially tanked a promotion for the exact opposite reason? Ticket sales and view rates so bad the organization he headlined in MMA never recovered. It's the story of one of the most ambitious MMA events ever attempted and the colossal failure of what actually happened. I'm Balian from MMA On Point, and this is the story of K1 and how their US dreams died at the hands of Brock Lesnar. By 2006, Brock Lesnar was already a massive star from his time at the top of the world of pro wrestling. But in 2006, he'd been feuding with the WWE over a non-compete lawsuit after Lesnar had been wrestling in Japan. Questions had already begun in the media about what Brock might do next. At the time, Lesnar even attempted a career in professional football with the Minnesota Vikings.
Look at that. Like, what are you? Were you like a fish out of water? You hadn't played football since your senior year in Webster High School in South Dakota.
But just 5 days after the lawsuit with the WWE was settled, a major hurdle was removed. Our timeline begins. On the 29th of April 2006, he made an announcement that would light up MMA media and press.
He was considered perhaps one of the most exciting, entertaining, legendary men ever to step into the ring in the WWE, Brock Lesnar. Brock, come on up here. Come here.
Brock had been watching the K1 World Grand Prix take place in Vegas. If you don't know, K1 is a Japanese MMA and kickboxing promotion that had started to venture into the US, hoping to grow its profile internationally. In Japan, they'd had enormous success.
This ring kind of feels a little bit comfortable to me. Maybe we can work something out here. I kind of like it.
Lesnar had teased an MMA debut, and there were a lot of responses to his decision. How long had he been training, and wasn't he just a pro wrestler? Well, the truth was Lesnar did have a very decorated and legit amateur wrestling career. He was a state champion in high school with an undefeated senior year at 33-0 before dominating the junior college ranks at 275 pounds, and then he won the NCAA Division I National Championships for the University of Minnesota.
Brock Lesnar from Minnesota is your heavyweight champion in the year 2000.
By the time it was all said and done, he was a two-time All-American who went with an astounding 106-5 record, which is pretty incredible. And of course from there, he went into the scripted world of pro wrestling where he became a giant star, and after a short stint with football, found himself looking to the world of MMA and one of the biggest organizations in combat sports, K1, who saw dollar signs. But banking an entire event on a guy who's never stepped into the sport before, well, that sounds like a pretty ambitious idea, right? Well, it's not just that K1 decided to do that. They were going to aim as high as possible for the event in the US. They wanted to shatter all-time records. But no official announcement of a fight happened. The months rolled on into July as reports started emerging of Brock Lesnar training at first in Iowa with the former UFC champ Pat Miletich. And he was saying things like, yeah, within a year, Brock Lesnar will be unstoppable.
I'm just working on my stand-up game with shots, with combinations with takedowns and learning to slip punches and to throw punches and to basically set up my takedown.
MMA is real and wrestling is fake. For anybody that doesn't know that, you're living in a cave. I want to fight. That's the reason for it. I want to fight.
It was then in August, the news became official that Brock was indeed signing to fight with the Japanese promotion K1. And K1 had a reputation for putting on some of the biggest combat sports events of all time. A night like no other in MMA history took place in 2002 when 91,000 people went into the Tokyo National Stadium to watch Pride Shockwave Dynamite. Now, while the actual number of 91,000 is disputed, it still remains as the largest attendance for an MMA event in history. safe to say K1 had ambitions when it came to putting on shows in the US as well. It was going to be no different, at least that's what they thought. The North American attendance record for an MMA event was only 19,000, broken by the UFC when Randy Couture and Tim Sylvia fought for the heavyweight title at UFC 68, and the UFC themselves were only growing in size and strength. On December 11th, 2 months after Brock's announcement, Zuffa purchased the WFA and the WEC. The MMA world and its competitors were shrinking, but it would not stop K1 from gearing themselves up for a massive announcement. One that couldn't be contained. On March 19th, the speculation started, and a name was already been thrown out there: Hong Man Choi. 4 days after the rumors had begun spreading, it was announced a press conference would take place to promote the biggest US MMA event of all time. K1, working alongside the US-based Pro Elite, would be taking their show to pay-per-view with Showtime and the 93,000-seater LA Coliseum, a number the UFC hasn't even come close to in attendance to this day.
On June 2nd, this is my first MMA fight, and I am extremely excited about this. I'm looking to make a huge impact in the mixed martial arts world today.
Just how was Brock going to look in MMA? There were a lot of hardcore fans that were just against the idea of a pro wrestler even thinking they had a chance.
Amateur wrestling has been in my blood since I was 4 or 5 years old, and for me, it's just the opportunity to become a professional wrestler came at me before the chance of to join mixed martial arts. So
K1's idea of an opponent for Brock may have just been the biggest guy they could find, or maybe they thought it was a genuinely good matchup. Either way, with both guys being massive, it kind of was shaping up to have a bit of a Japanese circus fight feel.
I mean, it's self-explanatory. He's a very large human being. Big head, big target. I feel good. I've been training for a year. I feel like I'm well prepared for it. I feel like this is a good first opponent for me.
All the speculative questions about whether or not a year was really enough time to prepare to step into MMA as well.
Well prepared, mentally and physically. I like to think in my own mind that I'm well-rounded in jiu-jitsu. With my wrestling background, it all flows in very well.
The date was confirmed as June 2nd at the 93,000-seater LA Coliseum. I know what you're thinking. That sounds like an insane number to try and hit, especially for an international promotion heading abroad. But the promoter, Sadaharu Tanikawa himself, stated there would be 100,000 people in attendance. We are targeting not just hardcore fans, but all sports fans. Other big names like Royce Gracie joined the card, as well as a former NFL star Johnny Morton, who also, like Brock, signed up to make his MMA debut. But no one else even had an opponent yet.
Any idea who you're going to be fighting in Los Angeles on June 2nd?
No idea yet.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I got the point. It doesn't matter. I'm not sure yet. I'd like to know as soon as possible, get an idea, size-wise, skill-wise.
They booked other big names like Jake Shields, Gina Carano, even Bigfoot Silva, but they still didn't really have opponents for anyone. But they were going to promote the show as soon as possible, it seemed, especially considering, well, they now had to sell 93,000 tickets, didn't they? But whether intentional or not, on the very same day they announced this event and were doing their press conference, the UFC dropped a bombshell of a statement. It was official, they had purchased Pride FC, and Japanese MMA around the world, for that matter, would never be the same.
Just learning how to work together instead against each other. No, it's positive. Yeah, I like that everybody fighting under one rule.
And I'll have to disagree with something that Mr. Sakakibara said earlier. He was talking about all the other MMA organizations that are coming up and climbing up the ladder. I laugh at that. I think they're all a joke. The only two companies in this world that matter are the UFC and Pride.
The president of FEG, Tanikawa, though, had been asked about it on the day and said, I have a personal alliance with Pride. It's still a pretty big issue. It's a very powerful organization. We have big power as well as they do. We do a lot of collaboration for the development of MMA. But his expectation for collaborations with the UFC would remain entirely speculative. Dana had been pretty clear how he felt about Pride, cross-promotion, and their attempts themselves to tap into the US.
Pride keeps rant. They're going to come to America and they're going to take over. They're going to crush the UFC. They're going to send this guy and that guy over here. They never send anybody. They never come over here. They're not doing anything.
Of course, who knows if anything Dana is saying is true, but if anything, it underlines how ruthless the MMA world was becoming, and the UFC toppling a major Japanese competitor on the eve of another one trying to put on the biggest show of all time in the US, well, it set the scene for what was to follow. The whole Coliseum event was being funded by Mr. Masayoshi, who according to Forbes magazine was the richest man in Japan. And the head of pay-per-view at Showtime, Ken Hersham, said it was one of the most compelling sporting events he'd seen on paper for a long time. The reality was, though, that was a lot of tickets to sell, and a very ambitious event, and President Tanikawa was relying on the fact that we have support from the Korean community, which is about 800,000 people in Los Angeles, and 400,000 people in the Japanese community. They were coming to the US to try and fill up a stadium that I'm not even sure the UFC would have been able to fill at the time, or even now. On May 4th, 2007, the tickets went on sale, and still the only official matchup announced was Brock Lesnar vs. Hongman Choi. Ticketmaster were handling distribution from the get-go, but it was apparent that tickets were just not shifting, despite the FEG president once again assuring people in a press release. From the immense popularity of MMA and our consistent demand overseas, we expect seats at the Coliseum to fill up quickly. But that Coliseum would be much harder to fill than they anticipated, even with them slowly revealing the rest of the card throughout May. An immense co-main event, Royce Gracie vs. Sakuraba 2, was announced shortly after. The rematch of their absolutely epic and historical 90-minute war years before in Pride. Johnny Morton as well got an actual fighter instead of the pro wrestler after Don Carras Jr. pulled out. He was going to be taking on the very stacked Bernard Acker. But trying to sell an event to an American casual audience, many of whom still didn't really know what MMA was, wasn't exactly going to be easy.
This event is going to be on Showtime pay-per-view, and there's enough interest in this sport, I guess, to justify that. It really is something.
I'll be fighting 5-minute rounds against a guy from South Korea. He's a lot taller than I am, but he does have a bigger head than I do.
By May 17th, while the likes of Jake Shields, Bigfoot Silva, Gina Carano had been teased on the Elite XC portion of the show, Gina had to pull out now after falling ill while filming Fight Girls in Thailand. Her name was taken off the card along with the K1 star and future PFL president Ray Sefo and a matchup against UFC vet Marvin Eastman. The teasers started dropping on the 21st of May. As quickly as this thing was coming together though, it was falling apart at the seams, and never did that become more apparent than on May 23rd, when news broke that both Bigfoot Silva and then the man supposed to fight Brock Lesnar, Hongman Choi, had been denied a fight license due to a pretty significant medical concern. They found an actual tumor on his pituitary gland. Just 8 days out now from the event, the reports also surfaced that the California State Athletic Commission had yet to license them. They hadn't received the paperwork they needed, and well, it's because K1 kind of had no idea how much regulation they would actually need to go through. And then on May 29th, news surprisingly came out that Sakuraba was also apparently just finally cleared to fight as well 3 days before the show. Yep, this thing was coming together at the last minute. It was bad enough that Brock was still talking about fighting Hongman Choi, who'd already been medically banned from the event, but just 5 days later now, before the event was going to happen, there were posters with his face on it promoting the fight against Brock, a fight that was not going to happen. Were they trying to deceive people? Or perhaps everything was just so last minute they just didn't have time to change things around. But the very day before it was all supposed to go down, on June 1st, the LA Times dropped an article that basically shone a light on just what the hell had been happening. Apparently, all the delays in getting licensed had been to FEG and K1's slow ability to produce financial documents, essentially giving the Californian Commission reason to doubt that the event could even take place. That the company could even finance a show with estimated costs of $2 million in commission fees, site fees, fighter purses. They also confirmed the commission had denied to clear Hongman Choi along with Bigfoot Silva. Choi had been appealing, which is maybe why they kept promoting him before the event. Gary Shaw, the co-promoter with Elite XC, had said, "We have very strict medical rules in California, and they can't just accept out-of-country medical reports." But there were also details about the event and its ticket sales. Mike Kogan, the FEG producer, said they sold at least 40,000 tickets ranging from $10 to $100. But the article also said the FEG officials reported they plan to only sell 10,000 tickets, distributing 20,000 free tickets to stadium entertainers and another 50,000 to fans. The idea that this event was going to pull in 90,000 fans was just not going to happen. And more than that, it turns out the tickets had just not been selling at all on Ticketmaster. The promotion would in fact turn to buying tickets from the retailer only to distribute them themselves amongst the fan base for free, with the estimated amount of people reported to the Californian Commission to be 39,000 free tickets given away. Somehow, despite all this, Mike Kogan stated as well, including a $500,000 bill to use a Coliseum, FEG expects to return a profit. He said he expected a packed house with complimentary tickets, but it wasn't about ticket sales. We just want people to enjoy MMA, and that this event will have more exposure than any event ever produced in the US. Well, in some ways, he was right. In a report the day before the event, ESPN confirmed that Brock Lesnar's new opponent was Min-Soo Kim, another Korean but a complete unknown in comparison to Choi and with a 2-5 record in MMA. And so the press conference went ahead with this new opponent.
I'm well prepared for any South Korean that they put in front of me Saturday night. I hope that we can meet everyone's expectations.
Even former NBA legend Dennis Rodman was talking shit.
UFC, fuck that. Any UFC cannot compete with K1. You get it?
But there was nothing that could be done to shift the extra tickets or fill out the stadium.
Brock Lesnar, the former NCAA wrestling champion and WWE superstar, makes his MMA debut tonight. Lesnar is looking for a bigger challenge, and he may have found it in former Olympic judo silver medalist Min-Soo Kim.
The stage had been set, the gates opened as fans entered the Coliseum. With apparently 42,000 tickets distributed for the event, it began to look much less than even that.
Welcome to Los Angeles, California. Tonight, for the first time in history, Japan's K1 fighting organization brings its global brand of mixed martial arts to the United States. FEG and Elite XC present Dynamite USA.
The event unfolded like no MMA event you've ever witnessed, including a live DJ from the KTLA 5 morning news show to get everyone started.
LA, what's going on? Make some noise!
And that's when Dennis Rodman came back out holding a flaming torch to light the ceremonial flame, and you knew shit was about to get crazy.
I think Rodman just disintegrated up there.
I think Homie Choice just received the fright of his life.
From the get-go, it was clear that obviously they hadn't nearly come anywhere to 90,000 people as previously predicted. And despite the ticket distribution of those 40,000 people, less than half had shown up. K1 had to deliver after spending nearly $2.3 million on purchasing their own tickets alone. That's not counting, obviously, the musical acts they walked out to perform the national anthem, where it felt like they just spunked money and whatever the hell they thought sounded fun for 2 minutes.
My man Joey P, I want you to show him what you do.
I mean, who the hell are these guys?
Tonight we present two high-profile MMA debuts as wrestling superstar Brock Lesnar enters the ring for the first time ever with the outcome yet to be determined. Japan's Kazushi Sakuraba and Brazil's Royce Gracie in a rematch of their epic 90-minute battle in Japan 7 years ago.
Someone I actually got to speak to about this event as well, Brad Pickett. After his UFC run, Brad opened up GB Top Team in South London, where he was able to train for a few years. He's been coaching guys like Nathaniel Wood and new star Lonnie Kavanagh in the UFC, but back in 2007, he was coming over after being champion in Cage Rage to fight in this absolutely massive spectacle of an MMA event.
The experience, the whole thing was so cool. The venue was so big, it's an LA Coliseum. I had to walk down all these stairs, which were lit up, like from the top of the Coliseum, go down to the bottom, get into a golf cart, and get driven to the ring. It didn't seem crazy full. Did feel kind of empty when I was there.
First up out of the spectacle fights was the football player Johnny Morton.
Been training martial arts for a few years, but again, Jay, this is it, the moment of truth for Johnny Morton.
Touch him up and let's do it.
Despite agreeing to an MMA fight though, Johnny was completely out of his depth against a way more seasoned Bernard Acker.
And immediately Morton overwhelming Acker.
Johnny got tired, tried desperately to take his man down, couldn't, and then got absolutely flatlined in just 40 seconds.
Really swinging for the fences.
And Acker's hair fell out.
And
There's the knockout.
Martin is down.
I mean, great. A complete unknown fighter KOs a sports star, and there's not much else to say about that. Johnny never fought again, and he ended up leaving in the neck brace. This is also the moment Nick Cage walked in. He was there, just wanted to point that out. But that's one thing this show did have, lots of stoppages. The super heavyweight fight between Mighty Mo and Warpath Rubens Villarreal was over in just 90 seconds.
The sport has to offer, and now he's in there with Mighty Mo. Misses with the left and the right, but Warpath is down.
Mo may get a submission.
Oh, and that shot, I think, has put Warpath out. He hurt his body with that shot.
And Brad walked out to fight, although it didn't go his way against a submission expert, Tokoro.
Got himself in a good position.
Going underneath.
And it looks like he got it.
He's got it.
It's over. Brad Pickett submits to the armbar.
But of course, so much attention had also been given to the co-main event, Sakuraba versus Royce Gracie, one of the biggest rematches in the history of the sport, and they sounded the drums of war. I mean, holy shit, is that Luke Rockhold? Royce came out wearing the same gi he wore for UFC 1. And although they were far past their prime, it was still a giant rematch with Sakuraba. They were 38 and 40 respectively. It actually started off pretty well.
First fight.
And Sakuraba already rocks Gracie with the right hand. Sakuraba has a hold of that right leg. Now some up kicks here.
But they really started to slow down. The crowd weren't into it, and even the DJ tried to encourage them to cheer, and they did. They all started chanting, "Shut up, DJ."
Latches on you like a snake.
You guys gotta get these fighters into it.
Look, he lands nothing. He lands absolutely nothing.
By the end of the second round, Hoist and Sakuraba were just holding in the clinch, and the live audience rained down the boos.
3 steps ahead, almost respecting each other too much.
There's definitely a sense of respect, but again, we have to say, what did people expect?
And I don't care, you don't boo these two guys.
By the time of the final bell, the crowd were once again booing what was supposed to be one of the most anticipated and respected rivalries in the sport's history. All 3 judges scored the fight for Gracie, even though it had been arguably quite close, and he got revenge for losing the 90-minute war. But it had been anything but pleasing the crowd, most of whom were given free tickets to the event, so yeah, no shit they booed the ground game, they didn't even know what they were watching. But then it was time for the main event and the debut of one of the largest humans on the planet. The whole event in the US was built around Lesnar, although they'd seriously fallen shy of the numbers they were supposed to hit. Brock was hopefully, though, about to electrify the world.
And 3-time WWE World Wrestling Champion, Brock Lesnar!
Brock looked intense. He almost gave Kim a kiss during the stare down. But at the same time, I mean, even the commentators knew that Kim wasn't really the same level as Brock.
Is he being fed to the Sharks here tonight, Jay?
I certainly think he is being fed to the Sharks here.
Kim threw a lazy kick, Brock took him down, and that was pretty much it.
But look at Lesnar smothering him. The NCAA heavyweight champion here on the ground against Min-Soo Kim.
Within 40 seconds, he had mount, and, well, it was pretty lackluster, I suppose. Let's just say that.
Min-Soo Kim trying to keep him at close. That's eating him. That's it.
After a few shots, not even from postured up, Kim tapped, and you realized the entire LA Coliseum had been booked for effectively just 1 minute and 1 takedown. The spectacle was over. There was an insane fireworks display, and K1 Dynamite US had fallen far short of their expectations, although it was never actually truly clear how many people had come to the event. According to journalist Josh Gross, who reported it at the time, California State Athletic Commission released documents that 42,000 people had attended the event, which technically broke the North American attendance record. But that record was set by paid attendance. A key thing to note, because of those 42,000 people, how many had actually paid for a ticket or even stuck around? The place looked very empty. Well, according to Josh, numbers showed on Ticketmaster and the Coliseum box office that just 3,674 tickets were actually sold, which meant that over 39,000 had attended because FEG had printed and given them away. Which means the actual number of paid attendance was staggeringly low. In fact, CSAC reported it as a gate of 2.5 million, which just 200,000 had come through actual ticket sales. FEG still went home though and told Japanese media that 54,000 people had attended the show. But really, I mean, they didn't even know. 18,000 people came through the actual turnstiles so they could count them, but they'd given so many tickets away and thousands weren't used. I mean, shit, the official LA Coliseum tweeted out years later and they said 23,000 people attended. But the sale of the tickets wasn't the only fallout of the event. The NFL player Johnny Morton, who got starched, tested positive for epitestosterone. His ratio was 83-1. The limit is 6-1. Okay, that wasn't the only one though. On June 14th, CSAC announced that Hoist Gracie, of all people, had failed his drug test. He tested positive for nandrolone, an anabolic steroid, and so the whole match with Sakuraba was written off, and his legacy was sadly also tarnished. Not a good look for a member of the Gracie family, and basically who the UFC was built on in the early days, and the fight with Sakuraba wasn't even overturned. Yep, this event had been a bit of a disaster in many ways, including the pay-per-view. It was reported by several sources as being between 30 and 35,000 buys. Really not a lot for the spectacle of what they were going for, and that meant they lost a ton of money on this event from every perspective. But the biggest blow was that this event also killed K1 as a promotion in America. Mike Kogan, the head of FEG US, had been trying for several years to get K1 into the US and to grow them internationally. They had been running live events with Scott Coker already in Vegas, and they had done really well. Like so well, in fact, that in 2004, Kogan said K1 was on the verge of a major TV deal with none other than ESPN. They were going to broadcast K1 fights live on Friday nights, which could have changed the landscape of the sport at the time. But according to Kogan, FEG just apparently weren't that bothered or even that interested in an American TV deal. Mike put it down to narrow-mindedness. He said FEG was so used to high ratings in Japan, they became oblivious to the rest of the world. Ultimately, he said he had to beg them to agree to air fights on HDNet, and for Mike, he believed that K1 could have survived in America, but the LA show would be the last K1 held in the US, and it had not gone down well. Eventually, K1 ran out of money, with Mike Kogan stating, "The bottom line is that the debt owed to the fighters is so large that FEG could not secure fighters for a card even if they were willing to because they couldn't arrange to pay them." And we've heard stories later on from guys like Alistair Overeem who didn't get paid for many of his K1 fights down the line, and I'm sure he's not the only one. I think most hardcore fans and media tried to forget the LA Coliseum show ever happened. The fights weren't great. Brock Lesnar's debut is perhaps the most thing of significance considering overall MMA history, and on the whole, it produced nothing but controversy. Although this could have been K1's crowning achievement in the US, it instead became their swan song. Don't you just love it when you learn something new about MMA history? Of course you do. That's why you're bloody here. I hope you like this one as well. This was a fun storyline to dive down. Fun to hear from Brad Pickett as well. Thanks, Brad. Shout out to you. Want to give a big shout out, though, of course, to Luke Taylor. Mate, thank you, Luke. Guys, if you enjoyed it, check out his YouTube channel, okay? Charlie and Luke. It's a new YouTube channel. He does a little side project. Go give him some love over there. Give him a subscribe if you want to appreciate his work or see more of it. Thank you to all the channel members out there as well. We hope you guys enjoy the videos, the long-form content. They get early access to them, in case you didn't know. So if you want early access to the videos, the writers meeting, you can sign up down below, become a channel member. Anyway, thank you very much. Appreciate you watching as always. Yeah, let me know what you want to see next. We are constantly digging out topics from a graveyard of stuff. There's a cat over there. All right, everybody, take care, and I will see you in the next video. You look so scared.